Edge of Fate is right around the corner, and I want to give you guys the best builds going into the new expansion. Stay till the end and I will give you my secret meta build. Now, we are going to be getting some sandbox changes, most notably armor stats. The cap is being brought up to 200 with additional benefits per point you put into a stat, such as more damage to supers, grenades, melees, or shorter cooldowns. But if your stat is too low, you will get penalized and do less damage or have a longer cooldown. So we are going to have to make some sacrifices in what stats we want to build into. Now, all these stats fundamentally are sort of staying the same, except for mobility and recovery. Mobility is now weapons, and recovery is now class. That means how much damage we're doing with our guns is based off of our mobility, fellers. Titans are f***ed, but don't worry, I did the math, we'll be fine. Build number 1, the 1-2 punch Strand Titan. Now the real money maker of this build is 1-2 punch and Syntheseps. With 1-2 punch, when you land 12 pellets, you get 100% melee damage for 1.22 seconds. And at a 200 stat tier 5 armor, that equals 30% melee damage, which stacks. And then the buff you get from Syntheseps is 165% bonus to melee damage from when you're surrounded. Aspects: Banner of War for the healing, and Into the Fray for Woven Mail. Fragments: Thread of Warding, Orbs of Power gives us Woven Mail. Thread of Transmutation, while we have Woven Mail, weapons make tangles and gives us more Woven Mail. Thread of Propagation, melee kills, gives us Unraveling Rounds, which we'll be using with Queenbreaker. And Thread of Continuity. Weapons: Swordbreaker with Subsistence and 1-2 punch. No Hesitation with Physic. This is beautiful because it gives you and your allies restoration. Stacking this with Banner of War and Woven Mail is nasty work. And Tractor Cannon for that 30% debuff. Now, I really wanted to get into the armor mods. With the changes coming in mind, I already readjusted my stats to look like this. But most importantly, I started to use the dead mods. Font of blank. These at base give 30 stat points, then 50 and 60 for all three, just for having an armor charge. So I built into that, and now in-game stats look like this. 56 weapons, right? 56 intellect, and 200 melee. The mods I'm going to briefly cover, pretty straightforward. Just notice I have a lot building into armor charges, taking advantage of getting 100% uptime on those extra 30 stat points. Build number 2, Precious Scars. This has carried me to solo dungeons, of course now optimized for Edge of Fate. The Precious Scars exotic trait reads: Final blows from weapons with a damage type matching your super create a burst of healing around you that grants allies restoration. Aspects: Soul Invictus for those sunspots that give a restoration, paired with Roaring Flames for that damage boost. Fragments: Ember of Searing, defeating scorched targets to make fire sprites. Ember of Mercy to give restoration upon picking up those fire sprites. Ember of Infurion to extend the duration of restoration by getting kills with solar or melee. And Ember of Torches for Radiant that gives a 20% weapon damage increase. Also going to be rocking Bonk Hammer with a healing grenade. Weapons: the first slot is optional, but ideally something hard hitting like a fusion, a grenade launcher, or shotgun. While your secondary and heavy are solar, leaning into Ad Clear to have 100% uptime on restoration and other abilities. In the second slot, a summoner with Incandescent or Aberrant Action, Zawuli's Midas Mini Tool. There's a lot of options here. The heavy, I like to go with a Dragon's Breath or a solar machine gun like Unwavering Duty, Avalanche, or Fixed Odds. A lot of the armor mods for these builds are going to look roughly the same, as I'm leaning into armor charges and utilizing the font mods. Alright, build number 3, Point Contact Cannon Brace. Now, what makes this build happen is the Melee Thunderclap, a charged mid-range melee that also grants 80% damage reduction during the charge up, and a brief period afterwards, accompanied by the exotic Point Contact Cannon Brace. Its exotic trait, Hammer of the Gods, defeating targets with your Thunderclap melee restores melee energy. Targets near you when you use the Thunderclap suffer lightning strikes and become jolted. Being amplified increases the damage. The aspects: Storm's Keep, casting our barricade and standing in it will give us Bolt Charge and Knockback to become amplified. Amplified gives us a 15% damage reduction, 33% slide distance, 40 handling, and 50 mobility, which is getting converted to the weapon stat. Don't tell Bungie. Fragments, Spark of Resistance for damage reduction. Spark of Discharge, Arc Weapon, Final Blows have a chance to make an Ionic Trace. Rank and File, 34%, Elite, 67%, and Mini Boss, 100%. Upon collecting, you'll get 1 stack of Bolt Charge. Spark of Frequency, while amplified, all sources gain 1 additional Bolt Charge. And Spark of Ions, defeating an enemy with Jolt or Bolt Charge will create an Ionic Trace which feeds back into Bolt Charges. You could use Thunder Crash or Fist of Havoc. Same thing with your grenade. I like a Pulse Grenade, but you could use whatever. But Thunderclap is necessary. The armor mods, most notably, I have Font of Wisdom, Vigor, Endurance, and Agility. So during combat with armor charges, my stats look like this. 76 weapon, 132 health, 67 super, and 143 melee. Now, weapons, I would recommend something long range like an auto rifle, or maybe an aerial denial frame like a Wither Horde or Lost Signal. But it's the secondary slot where synergy really comes in, like Forbearance, Undeaded, Prosecutor, Centrifuge, Trinity Ghoul, Risk Runner. There's a lot of options here. Heavy slot, Thunderlord, easy, or Terminus Horizon, or Grand Overture and Queen's Break for boss DPS. Build number 4, Hoarfrost. The exotic armor, Hoarfrost Z, Glacial Fortification reads, while you have a stasis super equipped, your barricade becomes a wall of stasis crystals that slows nearby targets when created. Standing behind this barricade will grant you and your allies increased weapon reload speed, stability, and range. As specs, Tectonic Harvest, shattering a stasis crystal or frozen targets creates a stasis shard. Picking those up will grant frost armor. Small shard equals 1 and large equals 3. And Howl of the Storm, while sliding, activate your charged melee and a wave of ice will come out. Fragments, Whisper of Fissures, Whisper of Refraction to get more class ability. That's what we're going to be spamming. Whisper of Chains, defeating targets while having frost armor, has a chance to make a stasis crystal, which will fund back our frost armor. And Whisper of Rhyme, more frost armor. Primary slot, I recommend a Lost Signal, New Pacific, or Altherium. I bet you forgot about this one. And surprisingly, the Aegis Scepter. Yeah, it's still pretty good. Secondary slot, go wild, kids. Just try not to go double special. Heavy slot, I like Salvation's Edge. Quillums, if you got it. Winter's Bite, a Slammer with either or Cold Steel and Chain Reaction, a Zephyrs, something with Stasis. Armor mods always have powerful friends. My fonts, I'm using Wisdom, Vigor, Endurance, and Agility. I really think these are going to be clutch in getting to those stat bumps. Build number 5, Prismatic. Come on, people, if you think this is going to get bricked, you have lost your mind. Even with our aspects going down to 1 fragment, it's still going to put out if you follow the build. Okay, Twilight Arsenal. But honestly, you could use whatever, it's prismatic, have fun. But this build does call for Twilight. Aspects, obviously Consecration and Knockout. I don't think I have to explain that any further. And Fragments, you only get 2. So, Facet of Dawn for Radiant and Facet of Blessings. I ran it, you still get a good amount of melee energy. And don't worry, we'll compensate for a small package with big numbers in our stat bank. The armor mods, I got 2 Fonts of Vigor, bumping me up to 183, and Fonts of Wisdom to feed back into my low super. Every mod is almost the same in every build, really just leaning into armor charges and fonts. Weapons, I rock the Kvostov, beautiful neutral weapon that puts out. Secondary, always the Undeaded or Forbearance, something to put out massive AoE potential. Same thing with heavy, but try to get a dark element in there. Salvation's Grip isn't bad for fueling that darkness energy. Winter's Bite, again. There's some strand grenade launchers that's pretty good as well. Caraxes. Could even go a sword route. You got the new Abyssal Edge. I got the God Roll. Yeah, it's nice. You got Thin Precipice or Dragon's Cult. Armor mods, always powerful friends. 2 Fonts of Vigor and 1 Font of Wisdom. And the class item is Spirit of Innermost Light and Spirit of Contact. If you don't got this, at the very least, try go for the Spirit of Contact or Severance on anything you can get. And that right there wraps up the best builds going into Edge of Fate for the new expansion. Oh wait, hold on. I almost forgot. For those who stayed and watched the whole thing, I appreciate you. For those who skipped to the end, I respect it. But now for the most secret, awesome, epic meta build that I'm taking into Edge of Fates is Thunder Crash. Easy optimizing to try and get that max value of 200 intellect. Really just leaning into getting the most damage possible out of that Thunder Crash. I would try to max out weapons to 200, but I simply just don't have the mobility. It literally doesn't exist in my vault, but I can make it out of my intellect. But anyway, video's long enough. Here's the deets. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching. Let me know what you guys are bringing to Edge of Fates. Stay tuned. I'll have more builds coming for every class, including PvP. Thank you so much. Have a good one.